yesterday, and then a few people today are like, I didn't know how to do those ones. So hold on, you guys help me out real fast before I keep grading. You guys help me out real fast. What were you supposed to do in 78, 79? Plug it in. Good. So if you are like writing yourself little notes of what to do or things that your brain isn't thinking about so it can remember later, we want to plug in, right? And then step 2 is basically we want to simplify. We want to plug in and we want to simplify. But be careful. We have 3 different numbers that need to get in very specific spots. So what I showed yesterday, I think it was it you, John? Jonathan was asking about PEMDAS, I think, in the sense of the order that you were supposed to go. So I reminded that you're going to plug in a value and square it. And then when it says 4AC, guys, in algebra, when we have things written next to each other, what operation is occurring there? Got it. So we need to throw in our numbers in the appropriate spots. So what should have come first in that square? Good. And this one should be 6. In homework, well, the B would have probably been different, right? But we throw the B in the B spot, and then the minus and the 4 stays the same every single time. But then we have to throw in the other 2 numbers. So the first one could be our A, which is 1, right? And then our C, which is 4. Now, it's all about PEMDAS. We've had a lot of things where we've seen PEMDAS keep on coming back, keep on coming back. We have to be careful. PEMDAS, let me start off because you guys might not know this. The P means parentheses, but there's nothing to do inside the parentheses. No addition, no subtraction, no multiplication, no division. But technically, this big old huge radical that we keep on seeing, since he's around everyone, he actually kind of has understood parentheses of his own. Well, I could pull up my big snazzy calculator, but he has this new operating system. The older calculators, I don't know if I have one close. I think it's in a drawer. The older calculators had an older operating system, and you would actually put in a square root, hit that button, and it would put a parenthesis. The older ones would. Now they've made it nice and neat, and it like makes the square root go nice and long. But the older ones would do the parenthesis because you would put in whatever you need, and then you would stop the parenthesis. And you would be telling the calculator to take the square root of this whole thing. So actually, P in PEMDAS just means any grouping symbols. And a square root is actually grouping all of that. So anyway, all that to say, P PEMDAS means do what's under the square root. Now, under the square root, what should we do first? Good, because we have an exponent, right? So 6 squared is? And I still have all of this. What do I do next? Multiply, not subtract. But do you remember the order of multiplication? We always go from left to, so then the first multiplication is 4 times 1 with a minus in front. Yeah, we can keep that minus. So 4 times 1 is 4, but what else is there? And then we can go again. 4 times 4 is going to be 16 with that subtraction in front. Now I've done my P for PEMDAS, I've done my big old grouping symbol, I've done my exponent, I've done my multiplication. Now what is it time to do? Subtract. And finally, what am I allowed to try to do? Square root it. I think it was you, Andrew, yesterday that was asking about the square root of 3 or 6 or one of those nasty ones. Like, how do you keep going? If it said something about hundredths, then we would plug that into our calculator. If I just said, ooh, simplify, this is actually going back to section 9.1 saying if this is a radical and I'm not using my calculator, do you guys see that there's a 4 that goes into this 20? So I could rewrite 20 as square root of 4 times square root of 5. Are there either of these that I know? Yeah, 4 is 2 and 2. That's a perfect square. Since it's a perfect square, if I were to write it, I could throw in that square if it helps your brain process it. Or you could just say, I know the square root of 4. It's 2 without a square root. And that would be the finest, simplest radical form. So the difference between what we were doing when it said hundredths, just in case you might want to write this on your sheet, because hopefully you're using these worksheets to study, right? If the directions say anything about hundredths, we're allowed to go to our calculator. And we're allowed, or even we need, to get decimals. That's when you plug in a square root and it gives you a decimal. But then if it just says the word simplify, and doesn't say hundredths or using hundredths, that's when we simplify the radical and then we stop. Once we can't break down 5 is just 5 and 1. No perfect squares, I'm done. So if we go back to our homework real quick, because I think, the answers up here. I think number 78 should have been here. You see how number 78 wasn't a decimal? Because the directions were simplified, not hundredths. So they didn't map. Hold on, wait a minute. I actually know where this came from. You guys should have gotten before this. This would have come from square root 4 times square root 3. You would have had a 12 underneath. Some of you guys might have had square root 12, and you were right if you plugged in well. You just didn't remember, oh. They say simplify. I'm trying to break down the 12 to find a perfect square that I can take the square root of, and anybody who's left over just gets stuck, in essence, and remains in that radical. So maybe some of you were a little confused as to why there weren't decimals. There weren't decimals because the directions were simplified. So that guy goes to the 2, and that guy goes to the root 3, and then you would. Okay, sorry, just trying to make sure that you guys were good on the warm-up, and now you can go ahead and let me get the book back up here, because I saw a few of you guys that had left 78 and 79 blank. Now I'm giving you some grace as I walk around the room. However, what could you do right now that you've seen us do number 80? Actually do 78 and 79. So those of you that had them blank, do them now. And those of you guys that didn't have them blank, just kind of be working to see if you can help a couple. At least like half of these kiddos that graded thus far didn't have 78 or 79 totally done. So go ahead and get those done now. Okay, I have an extra copy.
My dad's not
Yeah, you go to 78. Yeah, so now.
Okay, that works.
Alright guys, we need to kind of bust into section 9.5 in just a couple minutes, but I do have time for just a little bit. A few remaining questions if we have it from C. Now there were a couple of you that were absent here and there, so you have little holes in A or holes in B. Most of you got A pretty good. B homework is where we started kind of skipping some of those or getting stuck on some of those problems at the end. But C homework is the one that we're technically on. If you were absent, that's something to come in, and I would love to help you. Grab a whiteboard, 7th period or after school, almost any day. Just this week is weird, not today. After school, 7th period today is okay though. But is there anything here, 37 to 43, 78, 79, that you still need to talk about? Yeah. Okay. Let's get to 79. It's like the warm-up that we just did. Anything else though from earlier, from the 30s? Those the weird ones with the numbers in front. Okay. So then just peeking at 79 and making sure we're okay in this whole plugging in thing. I think there's a lot of space over here, so if you guys don't mind, I might just do it right over here. Do what? Do my plugging in and simplifying. So Andrew, when we went to plug in, what should go in that B spot that got squared in 79? Good.
4.
And then we have minus 4. It's always minus 4 times. Okay, now A, -2. And C is, got it. Okay, so order. What goes first underneath this square root? Good. The squaring is 16. Now remember, anytime you see any numbers next to each other, that's multiplication, which should always go before subtraction, right? So we're leaving that 16 minus. We can't touch that. But what is 4 times negative 2? Okay, so it'd be minus a negative 8, which does end up being, you're right, a positive. But I still have the 7, right? Now there's still that big square root. We still have to multiply. 8 times 7 is one of those, yeah, some people get confused on it. And then, did you guys go ahead and add that? Is that 72? Now, answer in the back of the book won't be that. It won't be a decimal. It's not hundredths. But it will be simplified down because 72 is a big number that I can totally break down. So did anybody find anything that goes into 72 that's helpful? 9, yeah. And 9 is 9 times 8, right? 9 is 3 and 3, true? I'm going to hold on to him because he's a perfect square. But what does 8 have inside of him? 2 and 4. Which 2, okay, it's just 2. But what's going on with 4? So I have 2 perfect squares that I can use. I have 2 perfect squares that I can use. So then coming back over here, if I'm trying to answer number 79, I'm just kind of running out of room. I know right now number 79 has an answer of the square root of 72. I just saw that that's the square root of 9 and the square root of 4 and the square root of 2. Because it was 9 times 8, but 8 is 4 and 2. And I love the 9 guy. I love the 4 guy. Because this one, either if you write it 3 squared and get rid of the radical, write it 2 squared, get rid of the radical, or whether you have them memorized, you end up with just a 3, no radical, just a 2, no radical. Oh, he's stuck. So my final answer would be 6 radical. Is that cool? Last column question, 9-4C. Okay, now, real quick. Oh, Armando, I'm going to take it. Let me just do a quick note, okay? But yeah, I want to hear your question. Whenever I stop with homework questions in class, believe me, I'm not pretending that we all know what's going on, right? I'm not pretending that. What am I saying? Oh, well, it's time for us to move on as a class. But what am I hoping? If you're like, I still don't know the section, what am I hoping that you do?
You.
Oh, that's me. Come on, you just haven't figured it out. No, maybe go to a tutor. Maybe go ask another teacher you're more comfortable with. Sure, that's fine. Maybe work with someone who helps you on homework. That's fine too. But when I move on from a section, it's not like, oh great, we all have it perfect. Because I know we don't. Some of you are like, I have no idea what happened in that section. But a lot of you have been doing a lot better on your worksheets, a lot better doing practice problems with me in class. I think it's helping you in homework because a lot of you are showing work finally. You're finally showing work. And I'm hoping that's indicative that you're actually doing the work and not just using something like Photomath or Slater or something else to do it for you. So at this level, these are the basic fundamental skills. If you don't get this, you're not going to get much of anything. In the sense of, if you are okay with just kind of cheating your way through homework, it's just going to get worse from here on out, and I don't want that for you. I want success for you. So if you're like, a 9-4 was hard, okay, cool. I would love for you to come in, especially before the quiz on Friday, to come get some help, all right? But Armando, what was your question, bud?
I think we can do 78.
Okay, so 78. Let me get a little bit of white space because I ran out for the other one. Same idea though, right, bud? Plug it in.
Yes.
And the name of the game is, can you do your PEMDAS in the correct order, number 1, and number 2, can you simplify the radical when it's time? So plugging in that B, plugging in that A and C. How are you with the plugging in part? Okay.
Where did you get? Okay, is 4 always there?
4 is always there. See it? There's this formula that we haven't really memorized, but for some reason they're saying it's important. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay. Now PEMDAS would tell me square first, or the exponent first, because the parenthesis is this big radical that's just there. So everybody help us out. -6 times -6. But then I cannot subtract until I do what? Multiply. So multiplication left to right would get us, well, 4 times 3. I think we can hold this one in our heads. What is 4 times 3? 12. And what's 12 times 2? So maybe this is one where we could have done all the multiplication going left to right in our heads. Has anybody already figured out 36 minus 24? Mm-hmm. And this is where I was showing, I think we were grading the even in the back of the book. that there was some breaking down that happened. And what is the square root of 4? Just good old-fashioned 2. Square root of 3, I don't know, so I stopped. So I did my exponent, did my multiplication, did my subtraction, said, you don't want a decimal? Well, I don't know the square root of 12. Ooh, but I do know that it's 4 times 3. And I do know that 4 is 2 squared. All right, cool kids, here we go. Section 9.5, that worksheet back out. Some of you have taken notes. Thank you for that. Some of you have maybe written some notes in your worksheet. I see some of you like color coding and getting some work done. That's awesome. Some of you might be like, you know what? I think I could even start homework if you kind of showed it to me. So let me show you real quick what is homework tonight. Homework tonight is the very beginning of 9.5. If you want to take a picture of it and work on it throughout the day, maybe after we talk about the worksheet, that's cool. Here it is right here. It's numbers 3 through, let me zoom in. Where is he? Here we go. 3 through 17. 3 through 17. Now, guys, in this first section, can I just get you ready for homework a little bit? We're going to do the worksheet. But the first section, do you see how it says things like standard form? Ooh, okay, hold on. What's that? And then identify who is A, who is B, who is C. And that's it. Look at your worksheet. Which one seems to be saying standard form A, B, and C, and then that's it? Which ones in the worksheet line up with this section of homework? Some of you are taking a picture of homework. That's awesome. You can work on it throughout the day, or you can work on it even in class if you want. Which worksheet problems seem to line up with standard form A, B, C? Well, beginning of homework, I really hope it's the first one. We'll see. Now, you have a chart. This doesn't have a chart, but let's see if the chart maybe helps us on these. But this one just says, get it ready. All of this section is get it ready. This section says, now do it. Get it ready, now do it. So we have 2 separate parts of homework. Anybody else who wants a picture? It'll be up here for about 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2. If you want it, grab it. Jonathan, it's okay. Anybody else want it? All right. Let's go figure out what we're supposed to be doing. So, quadratic formula. Solving with the quadratic formula. There is, whoa, wait a minute. Who looks familiar? They were having us work with the hardest part of what we're going to have to plug in for the whole quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is, this might sound kind of weird and kind of out there, but it is a formula that will always work to find the zeros of any quadratic, whether they're messy or nice. Whether they're messy or nice. Now, complete the square made it possible that we started getting decimal zeros. We started getting decimal intercepts. We started getting decimal solutions with that guy. But this guy says you don't even have to draw a box. If you're good at formulas, you just have to plug in. You don't have to make an X. You don't have to draw a box. If you're good at formulas, you just have to plug in. And here's the hard part. This formula can make the easy problems harder, but they also make the harder problems easier. So it's one of those weird, it could actually end up taking you longer than complete the square or than factoring if it's easy answers. But then again, if it's really hard answers, it might make it easier or even possible if maybe the other processes get a little too hard. So we have a lot going on. But here's what I want you guys to see real quick, all right? For our quadratic formula, first step is we got to get it into standard form. What? The quadratic. We got to get it into standard form for this formula because we have to have an A, a B, and a C, and the only way we get the proper A, B, and C is if we have standard form. Good old-fashioned standard form where we get equal to 0. Now, for this guy, we didn't always do standard form. Remember, sometimes we didn't like who was here, so we would move him away because with complete the square, we were kind of making things work. We were kind of orchestrating things to make it nice and neat in that form that you guys liked where you put the radicals in. This guy says, nope, sorry. Nope, sorry. If you want to use me, if you need to use me, I need it in this form. First, so get standard form. Figure out who is A and B and C, and then plug it in, simplify. And by simplify, I mean simplify your radicals. You have to simplify radicals. You might have to factor. And you might have to reduce. These are the different types of simplifying that you might need to do. Because plugging in, well, let me put PEMDAS at the very top of this. I better put PEMDAS. Because we definitely had to think through PEMDAS even for part of this. We're going to have to be thinking PEMDAS, radicals, factoring, and reducing. We might have to use little bits and pieces of all of those. But the nice thing is your worksheet starts off with just getting standard form and who is A, who is B, who is C. So let's check out that. Except, ooh, it's kind of small. Let me zoom in. But to zoom in, I'm going to get away from this page. So simplifying means PEMDAS, radicals, factoring, and reducing. Let's see what's going on. So in this one, your guys' first few problems. Standard form says, for all of us, can we at least, please, circle standard form? And can we remind ourselves of what it is? Here's the key. We need 0 on one side. And we need our polynomial written in descending order. Here's the key. We need our polynomial in descending order on one side and then a 0 on the other. So, are any of these in standard form yet? No. But, if all I need to do is get it equal to 0, what do you guys think about me adding 5x? Look good? Because what is negative 5x plus 5x? So I have my 0, check, and then all I have to do is just put this in the right order. Put them together! No, I can't put them together. They're not like terms. Okay, that's fine. I actually don't want them together. I actually need them separate. How are we doing? Wait a minute. Something's missing. What's missing? Oh, but if something's missing, guess what we get to fill in for? What is C? Not there. And anything that's not there is just going to be 0. What's C? Not there. Anything that's not there is just going to be 0. But wait a minute. Who's A and who's B now that I have it written all nice and neat? Now careful. A is the number in front of the x squared and B is the number in front of the x. B is the easy one to see. Who's A? An understood one. Got it. Does that make sense? So some of you can zoom ahead to 2 and 3 and be like, wait a minute. So I'm just moving everything to one side, getting a 0, and then filling in A, B, C. I'm giving you a 30-second head start. Move everything to one side, and filling in A, B, C. I want to know what's up.
Wait, does everything need to be moved to one side?
To make it the standard form. So we start there. And once it's in standard form, then we're allowed to say who is A, who is B, who is C. Oh, sorry, but they were up here on the stool and I mentioned a few times. Oh, you guys, so sad.
No, I got
Raise your hand real quick. Who needs it? Pass that. It's okay. I kind of started to whenever there's a new worksheet for the day. I put it on Adrian's desk the other day, but then today when everyone was walking in, and I did a last call. It's on the stool. Oh, I didn't realize it. Thank you. I want to make sure you get those 100s, yeah? So hopefully you guys added 10 to the other side. You got your 0. Did you order this properly with the 1x squared and then the 3x and then the 10? Are we good?
Yes.
So who is your A? Who is your B? Who is your C? You're rocking nice. This is the first half of homework, guys. Just rewrite it and get your A, B, C. If you want to, you can make a table, or you can just say like A equals 1, B equals 3, C equals 10. I thought the table just made it kind of nice and neat. So then hopefully you move the 7x by subtraction, yeah? So 0's on this side, so what order did you guys put this side in? Who goes first? Who goes second? Minus 7x or negative 7x, who goes third? So then your A is, your B is, and your C is. Got it. Now, want to hear something kind of trippy though? You know how a lot of us just subtracted the 7x over and plugged in, and we have 2 negative numbers that we now need to put once we go to the next section into the big formula. What you could have also done, which is kind of weird, but you could have also actually been like, I don't like this guy being negative. I'm going to add him and subtract him. You could have actually gone the other way. And that would have canceled. That would have canceled. He would have gotten 0 equals. And over here, he would have gotten a positive 5x squared, a positive 7x, and a negative 2. So to be honest, there actually are other options. If you move everybody to the other side, instead of going left, you go right, all the signs are going to be flipped. Now, I don't know if I want to flip all of these to be negatives. I think that might be harder, but I think I might rather only have one negative instead of 2. I'm just showing you guys it's an option. Either one is right. Technically, this ABC is correct and this ABC is correct. Because if you go to the other side, all the signs will be the opposite. Anyway, just letting you know that's a thing. And why am I letting you know that's a thing? Well, because we have to take all of this information in other problems and actually plug in. The directions change in number 8. Wait, number 8. Isn't it number 4? Well, you guys have 2 formulas written in number 4. That's super confusing. What formula do you guys have? Yeah, it got messy. There we go. That's better, yeah? Okay. Number 6, if you guys realize, for some reason, my document, popped him down. Number 4 has number 6's equation. Sorry, you guys see that? Number 6's equation got written down in number 4. So if you want, you can write that equation, the second one, write it in number 6's spot and cross it out in number 4. Number 4 was only supposed to have this one right here. But as you guys notice, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, all of them are already written in standard form. They're not even making you work hard yet. The directions say solve. Solve how? Factoring? No, they want us to practice this big formula. And they're allowing us to use decimals. Oh, 10. Only 10? Okay, that's fine. And the formula they're having us use is the one that's up above. And the one that's up above uses that square root of b squared minus 4ac that we talked about in homework last night, but it also has a x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac. I think there's a way to memorize that. But how do we actually plug in? Well, we take our a is 1, b is 6, c is 9, and we actually try to plug it in and then simplify. So if it's x equals negative b, I take the b and put a negative. Plus or minus square root. B squared, 6 squared is 36, and I can do it in my head. Might actually even make some things a little bit easier. B squared has 36 minus 4ac. I just said, I know 6 squared is 36. Okay, I know this formula pretty good. So if I see 6 squared, I plug in at 36. But if I was to do another example, okay, maybe I would just write it out. And maybe you guys should just write it out sometimes too if it gets a little messy. In that you would literally write the negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2. But are we done? What do you have to do? And down. We plug it in. And down. Simplify it as down as much as possible. I want you guys to play on 3 through 17. At least get 3 through 8, maybe go a little bit to 17. I'm not grading it tomorrow, so I'm just asking you to go as far as you can until you get stuck. Sound good? Alright, see you guys later. Anybody that makeup work with time, you can it? Please do instead of that. Go right now. People with makeup work, come find me. Just not